Democratic congressman from Florida, Jared Moskowitz, ripped James Comer again today because he's using these oversight committee hearings to try to score political points by slandering Tim Walz and President Biden as somehow being corrupted by the Chinese Communist Party.
Recognizes Mr. Moskowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Sessions. I think the threat of China is real. That's why I voted for the China Select Committee. And I would also like to come up with bipartisan solutions. But unfortunately, that's not what the chairman is doing with this issue. Tim Walz was announced as the vice presidential candidate, and immediately the chairman opens up an investigation into the vice president. In fact, the chairman goes on to say China has a vice presidential candidate who has gone on record praising the country as one of his rationales for opening this investigation and sending letters to the FBI. Doesn't sound bipartisan, trying to get to the root of the China issue. But of course, you know, as we're doing that, you know, I'll do, just to remind the chairman, just a quick spirited reading of some of the things that President Trump has said. China's been working very hard to contain the coronavirus. The United States greatly appreciates their efforts and transparency. It will all work out well. In particular, on behalf of the American people, I want to thank President Xi. Trump again. I just spoke to President Xi last night, and you all know he's working on the problem, the virus. It's a very tough situation, but I think he's going to handle it. I think he handled it really well. We're helping where we can. Another Trump quote. Just had a very long conversation with President Xi on the phone. He's strong, sharp, powerful, focused on leading the counterattack on the coronavirus. He feels they're doing very well, building hospitals in a matter of days. Great discipline is taking place in China as President Xi strongly leads what will be a very successful operation. We're working closely with China to help. More Trump. I think China is very, professionally run in a sense, and that they have everything under control. I really believe they're going to have it under control very soon. In April, supposedly it'll die with hotter weather. That's a beautiful date to look forward to. But China, I can tell you, is working very hard. More Trump. We have very few people with it, and are getting better. They're all getting better. The whole situation will work out. I think China has it really shut down. And I bring all of that up because all of those things, all of the praising of Xi, this is the rationale that the chairman has used to do other stuff. The chairman went on Fox Business with Maria Bartiromo and said, yeah, the Walz family, that's a scary family there, when he was talking about the Walz family. If you look at Maria's face, it looked like she vomited, it came up, and then she swallowed it again as the chairman was talking about that. Okay, I'm sure the American people think Gwen Walz is really scary. The chairman went on to say that, Walz is very concerning to me because we don't want to set our business model like China. Of course, Trump always has a quote or a tweet for that. Trump said, she's now president for life, right? And that's great. And look, he was able to do that, and I think it's great. Maybe we will do the same. That's interesting. That sounds like Trump looking at the Chinese model and wanting to copy it, which is what the chairman said about Tim Walz. So I'm just curious, is the chairman going to open up an investigation into Donald Trump wanting to copy the Chinese model, which is what he accused Tim Walz of? We know the answer. More Trump about President Xi. We love each other. And so, knowing how this committee has conducted investigations, knowing the evidence that they've manufactured or the witnesses they've had to deal with, the only evidence the chairman has on Tim Walz in China is that maybe he visited a Panda Express once and he liked it. That's it. That's what's going on here. So I don't want to hear about bipartisanship on China. We were there, and then the chairman just goes all over TV and wants to accuse the Walz family of basically being spies for China with no evidence. And look, I appreciate the kind words the chairman said about me on Newsmax the other day, calling me the court jester, so thank you, my liege. Appreciate that. But he said something else that I think really sums up what this committee has done. The chairman went on and said, my job was never to impeach. Well, that is interesting. So for 2 years, almost 2 years, we have sat here. Well, we have run impeachment hearings. Well, we have had cameras, hundreds of interviews, millions of dollars to spend. And now the chairman finally says, my job was never to impeach. He only says that because it didn't work out. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have my staff send this to your office. I would love for you to sign it. And I'm going to hang it in my office as a reminder, okay, of what this committee was used for. Okay, so I don't want to hear about bipartisanship when they destroyed this committee over nonsense for 2 years. I yield back.
Jared Moskowitz there telling his liege, thank you for calling him the court jester there. Moskowitz makes fun of Comer all the time and makes fun of these hearings all the time because they're not real. Comer doesn't really want to get to the bottom of Tim Walz's relationship with China in that he just taught English there. No. He wants to paint this slanderous picture of Tim Walz and Kamala Harris and President Biden. Comer is the same guy who tried to impeach President Biden using information from Russians and the Chinese, using sources, using Chinese agents to try to impeach President Biden. So the idea that anyone can take Comer seriously is laughable. And Moskowitz does this a lot. And it's great because sometimes you need to bring comedy to these situations to point out just how hysterical and comedic the Republican Party is, especially Comer, especially Republicans in the House. Now, another thing about this hearing is that James Comer is continuing to try to do the dirty work of Donald Trump. That's holding hearings on subjects that Donald Trump wants to talk about in the run-up to the election so that they can try to hammer home the fact that, Kamala Harris is just evil and Tim Walz is working with the Chinese Communist Party, despite Democrats pointing out all of the things that Donald Trump said about Xi Jinping and him being the strong man and the authoritarian who he loves so much. Donald Trump also said these things about Kim Jong-un, how he wants to, he wants his people to stand up at attention like they do for Kim Jong-un.
Are we close to seeing Mr. Kim here at the White House?
Could happen. I mean,
They talked about that yesterday.
I would have I think it's something that could happen. Yeah. Hey, he's the head of a country, and I mean, he's the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different.
Right.
He speaks and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
And so these committee hearings, instead of being avenues for Republicans to score political points to help Donald Trump and Republicans in this election, become main streets for Democrats to remind America of just how terrible it was under Donald Trump. Republicans love to say, were you better off 4 years ago? And Democrats are like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how Donald Trump loved Xi Jinping and praised him for how he was handling COVID, and then went on to mess up COVID royally by ignoring science, ignoring his top scientific advisors, and talking about injecting bleach. Comer holds hearings where Democrats get to talk about this. Comer holds hearings with the Project 2025 authors last week, while Donald Trump is trying to distance himself from Project 2025. Again, just lobbing pitches to Democrats to just smack them out of the ballpark and say, look, Project 2025 is exactly what Donald Trump and Republicans want. So James Comer here continues to just shoot himself in the foot and Donald Trump while trying to score these just ridiculous political points about Tim Walz being in bed with the Chinese because he taught English in China. It's ridiculous. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Share your reflections with everyone down below and be sure to subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.